everybody, my name's Neil from Classic Car Holidays, and I'm joined today by Susie and Sean from the Cold War Classic Car Owners Club Eastern Bloc. Welcome, guys. Nice to see you again.
Hello.
Thank you, and you.
And once again, I'm talking to you from your soft top Trabby, and we're going to be talking about all things Trabant, of course. But we're going to be focusing today. We're going to be doing a little bit more work on restoration, modification, and ownership. And I guess it's fair to say that we'll be doing that from with very much a UK slant, although lots of things will apply to anywhere around the world, I guess. But we the stuff we talk about will be a sort of UK focused piece. So I don't know who wants to sort of kick off really, but I suppose the key question is what do you do when you want to buy a Trabant?
Okay, so just for a change, I'm going to kick off. And if you're in the UK, there are some really good Trabants in the UK that have been here for some years, and when they're here, they're kept really well, and they have all of the mechanical work done on them. So that's a good place to look for your first Trabant.
So just to slow that down just a fraction. So a prospective UK buyer would do very well to look at a ready registered UK Trabant. I mean, I think that's the takeaway, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah. That because the registration process is something that Sean will go through later, but it's not for the first time buyer particularly, unless they've got help. But you can get them from Germany, and now they're generally very good. The condition of the German Trabants is excellent because of their strict TUV historic MOTs. So TUV is the German equivalent of the UK MOT, but it's much stricter. So you can pretty much say that a Trabant bought from Germany is going to be top notch. Unfortunately, the ones that come in from Hungary or Bulgaria are an unknown history, and the conditions not generally, in our experience, been as good.
Wait. Hang on. I'm sat here in the middle of Bulgaria. Are you saying that Bulgarian Trabants are rubbish? Because I'm not going to have it.
I wouldn't dream of saying Bulgarian Trabants are rubbish. I'm just saying that.
One has to be careful. One has to buyer beware if you're buying from overseas. But if it's ready registered in the UK, there is that's a nice insurance policy right there. And if you're looking for Germany, then you've got a really good chance of finding something worthwhile. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I'm sure there are lovely Trabants in Bulgaria. Many of them.
I got a bunch of them, so that's...
absolutely.
So if you're going to buy, with a degree of certainty, UK or perhaps Germany even, that must come at a cost. You must that must affect what you are likely to pay.
So a UK with an unknown history will cost you between 1,000 and 2,000. If you've got a good condition one in the UK, you're talking more 2,000 to 3,500, and very good to excellent condition, 3,500 plus. I mean, one recently sold in the UK for 4,800. And the highest price paid in the UK was £6,000 for a restored combi.
Wow, and they were filling up farmers' fields back in 1989.
Indeed, yes. Germany, you buy from Germany, double or triple UK prices, to be honest. But you do get what you pay for. So,
right.
From Hungary, Bulgaria, sorry. No, from Hungary, Bulgaria, you can pay sort of between £500 and £1,200. But as we've said, you are buying an unknown quantity there. You really don't know, and you could end up sort of spending over £3,000 trying to put it right. So
just out of perhaps just out of curiosity, if the price of a Trabi in Germany is 2 times or even perhaps greater than it would be in the UK, is that also an expression of the interest in Trabi? You know, because it's all about sort of supply and demand, isn't it? So is there a greater demand in Germany for Trabis, would you say?
Yeah, I think definitely. We had quite a rare P600 that we'd restored, and that went to Germany. We had Wartburg 311 that went back to Germany. So the Germans do buy from the UK, but it's because of this nostalgia that we talked about in a previous episode. You know, it's supply and demand again, isn't it? You know, to get a good car, you have to pay good money. But in Germany, you know, the prices tend to be a lot higher than they are in the UK, mainly because of the TUV and the condition of them. So if you want to buy a car, it's either one that's been in this country, as Susie said, for a while, or get one from Germany, where they do spend a lot of time and effort doing them.
Okay, so let's imagine for a minute you were crazy enough to buy a Bulgarian Trabant, or you know, something, any old Trabant, any Trabant. What are the things you got to go and look for before you hand over your hard-earned?
So we're talking about things that when you buy a Trabant, what you want to watch out for, because there are some pitfalls to buying a Trabant, and it's really regardless of where you buy it from, to be honest. One of the reasons why we go on about Hungary and Bulgaria and other similar countries is because they tend to be used all the time. They're always cheaper repairs. You can use Hungary produced Trabant parts, and the quality isn't that good as new old stock German parts. And these are things you have to bear in mind, because if you don't, they'll bite you in the bum later on. And the thing is, if you buy a new Trabant, or you buy a Trabant rather, you want to always check the tyres first, because you'll either find that quite often not there'll be the old DDR tyres, or there'll be a cheaper make. So, and even some of the earlier ones still have the old cross plies on. So you just need to be aware of tyres. That'd be one thing that I check, because it might be worth just getting a new set of tyres put on, because again, you don't know the background to them. The other thing to do, we talked about this again in a previous episode, is we want to listen out for a death rattle. So when you buy that car, we don't want, when a 2-stroke engine, it should be bum, 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 really nice sound. You don't want that horrible metallic-y sound, which we call a death rattle, because it means that in its past, it's not had that correct oil to fuel mixture, and it's the death knell for that engine. And for a replacement, you're looking at €900 to import them from Germany. Get one rebuilt in this country, you're talking a lot more money, because it all comes down to the crank. So that's something that we need to be aware of. Brakes, another big problem. So I'll give you an example. We've brought Otto out today, haven't used him for a week, and the first thing the brakes do is squeak until you use them. So if a Trabant's been standing, so these Trabants we were talking about in farmers' fields, if they're not been used, the cylinders pop, you get leaks, or they just bind on. So this is why we were talking about using a Trabant as a daily driver. Brakes are really important, because they're the first thing to go.
Yeah.
Check the gearbox.
So I could add a little bit to that. My mechanic, my Bulgarian mechanic, he constantly tells me off for putting the handbrake. If a Trabi's going to sit somewhere for a while, my natural habit would be to pop the handbrake on, and he says no, that's going to cause me a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I think these tips, these tricks are hard earned, actually, in some cases.
Yeah, I think brakes, probably out of all of them, are the ones that cause the most problems, especially for people buying for the first time if the car's been sat for a while. So the other thing,
Sean, sorry to interrupt, Sean. Apart from the effort, apart from the grunt work in that has to go into checking or even replacing brakes. Drum brakes all round with pads. The pads aren't expensive, though, are they? Really? I mean, if they do have to be done, then they're not going to break the bank.
No, not at all. It's quite cheap. I think the whole complete brake set's about 100 quid, and you get them from Germany. They're new. They're really good. The only thing I will say though is if you've got a pre-1984 car, you're going to need a hub puller, because a lot of people make that mistake of not doing it and then bending the discs trying to get the hub off. So if you've got a pre-84 car, just buy a hub puller from Germany. They're about 25 quid. Never have to get another one. And you know, there's small things like that you've got to think about. And this is why, and Susie's going to talk about it later, about being a member of a club, because you can always borrow things like this from other members, but she'll go into that in more detail.
So, and just again, it's probably, you know, infinite detail really, but a hub puller, it's not a Halfords hub puller for you, no. For your pre-1994 Trabby. This is a Trabant hub puller for a Trabant.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You can't use a off-the-shelf puller for it. It needs to be a specific puller, which is why, you know, it's small things like this that stump the new owner, and it doesn't have to be that way, if you understand what I mean.
Okay, but, you know, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I think you were going to go on to talk about gearboxes.
Yeah, just one thing you just got to bear in mind when you buy a Trabant for the first time, it takes some getting used to using the gears. So I think the first time that Susie and I ever went out in Trevor, which is the old U2 car that we got hold of, you know, it took us about half an hour to master how they work. But what you've got to remember with the gearboxes, you should literally be able to change the gear stick with 2 fingers. It should be nice and smooth. One of the things that people don't do is change the gearbox oil. And what can happen is you can lose forth until the gearbox warms up, or, you know, that trying to get into gear can be clunky. So just look out for things like that, because it just means that in the past that Trabant may have had a bit of poor maintenance. So it's making sure that that gearbox oil is changed, and it's dead easy. I've done it many a time. It's you know, the way you put the gearbox oil in is a big red cap on the top of the gearbox. You can see it when you open the bonnet, and it's just a little small bolt underneath which drains the oil out. It's dead easy to do, but it's one of the first things you should do when you buy a Trabant is just change that gearbox oil.
Sean, do you mind if because we're just veering off topic a little bit, but I think probably given it's about ownership and, you know, restoration, modification, can we talk about fourth gear in a Trabby for just for a moment, because it's not normal.
No, so it has a freewheel. So basically, so I think people were first introduced to it in this country with the Wartburg. So Wartburg have freewheel through all the gears, and it takes some getting used to, because the thing with the Trabant is it can be quite clunky through the gears because it's a 2-stroke. So they had a freewheel on fourth. So you're in fourth, you have no engine braking, it will just coast. It's still ticking over because there was this misnomer amongst people that, you know, you've got to keep it in gear to get the oil around the engine. Well, you get that with tick over, but yeah, you do have a freewheel in fourth gear, so that's something just to bear in mind, that your Trabant isn't broken.
Right, and it does make you think, because I've had plenty of clients that particularly going downhill. So you're in first or second or third, and you're going downhill. So you don't, you know, gravity is doing all the work that you want it to do, but being a 2-stroke engine, it's a little bit hoppy.
Yeah, definitely.
So the solution to that is either put the clutch in, so that the you know, it takes that kangarooing away, or put it into fourth gear, the only gear that is a freewheel gear.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame they didn't do what Wartburg did, because I always run with freewheel on Wartburg through all the gears, because you get used to where you need to change gear with the particular speed you're going. But with Trabant, they didn't do that, which is a bit of a shame, because when we drive any of our Trabants through town, as we have today, you do get this clunky thing through first, second and third, but you know, you get used to it. I always have a sort of slightly sort of lower gear, so that I've got the revs a bit higher, so I don't have to go through that clunkiness.
Yeah. So so really, it's about understanding the vehicle. It's about driving technique. It's not a problem, but it's something to be aware of so that one can work around it.
Yeah, but going back to the gearbox oil and losing a gear, that's because the oil hasn't been changed, and that's different to freewheel. So that's be where you put it into the gear, and the engine would rev really high because it hasn't actually engaged. That's something different to freewheel. We just need to point that out. But going back to other things that we need to look for, another thing we need to be quite aware of is that we've got to remember that the fuel tank's in the front with the engine. There can be a buildup of moisture sometimes in that fuel tank, which can make it rust. The problem is because the fuel tank gravity fed, any rust particles or any muck that gets into that tank can get drawn into the carb through the filter under the tank, and that's something we just want to be aware of, because we've both had this in the past where we've had to have the tank sent away and shot blasted inside, and it's a costly problem.
Sure. And actually, if I think about that little fuel filter, which is a tiny little thing, which sits sort of just on the outside of the fuel tank, and they cost next to nothing. They cost pennies essentially. But I've bought some original, some old, back in the day, original plastic fuel filters, and they've literally sort of crumbled in my hands.
We carry spares.
Right. Okay. There we are.
So we've got spares, because this is a problem we actually have with Otto, is that the plastic ones, they warp. So we've got a metal one and a plastic one here. So yeah, this is the other thing with Trabant ownership, is always carry bits that you may need.
I think that's great advice, especially for the cheap stuff, because a box of cheap bits can actually they can get you home. And when a car goes wrong, it's always when it's howling wind and weeing down with rain. So okay, so there's that. But the point is, and the same goes for old rubber bits as well, old rubber bits and so on and so forth. They don't last forever. They particularly if they're not stored very well. So there's just for I know you mentioned it a wee while ago, but there are some very reliable suppliers around the place, and there are some places where you're taking a bit more of a risk. Can you just refresh our memories, if you would?
Yeah, so there's a really good company in Germany called IFA Service Heinz. He not only sells Trabants and Eastern Bloc vehicles, but his spares are amazing. So he does secondhand, he does new old stock. So he'll get you, if he hasn't got it, he'll source it. You've got established companies like Trabant Felt, LGM Tuning, Danza. They do both Trabant and Wartburg. Hungary produce new Trabant parts, but the quality, I've bought a brake set from them in the past and it's been oversized. So you have to just be a bit careful with that. But like I said earlier, the club members are a brilliant source of spares. I mean, we've got boxes of spares and we always help out other club members if they need anything. And I think Susie's going to talk about the clubs that you can join a bit later.
Well, can we? I wonder. Can we just cover that now, because it seems like the right time to do it. So those names that you mentioned, unless anyone has been watching this and scribbling down those names furiously, the club that you're involved in would certainly be a nice resource for picking up that kind of information. Susie, just talk us through what's out there.
So we run the Cold War Classic Car Owners Club Eastern Bloc, which is mainly on Facebook. But we have a page on Facebook. It's free to join, and if you're looking for some parts, then you literally just put a post on Facebook, and I can pretty much guarantee somebody will be back to you within the hour on where those parts are and how to get them if they haven't got them themselves. We've got over 1,200 members on that club, so that's quite a few people to ask if they've got the parts. There's Cold War Cars London. There's the IFA Club, which is the oldest club in the UK. They're also on Facebook, but they're a membership club. There's various Skoda and Lada Owners Club, the Tatra Owners Club. There's the Simpson motorbikes and things like that. MZ Owners Club, that's the one I was thinking of. So all of these, they're mainly accessible on Facebook, but they do also have websites where you can look. But honestly, if you just put a post on our page, somebody will back to you.
My suspicion is that if you stumbled across one of these clubs and said, "I've got a Simpson," does anybody know the address to the Simpson, the MZ Owners Club? Within seconds, you get your answer. So really, just sort of opening the door a crack will sort of get you a long way, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. What about registration? It's bureaucracy. It's a government agency. It's going to be a nightmare, right?
No. Well, no, it isn't. And this is the beauty of being a member of one of the clubs. So we help members all the time with this. The registration this is why buying in the UK a Trabant is much better, because it's already been done. But if you're going to buy from Germany, from any of the European countries, then a lot of people get scared by it, but it's not that bad. It's a simple form called the V55C. You don't have to put that much detail on it, so don't get it. Looks a complex form, but it actually isn't. You'll need a Nova declaration, and that's basically saying that the car's valued under 120,000 because the government are just looking whether there's any tax due. It's a simple HMRC log on online. It's done within 2 minutes, and you get the paperwork. You'll need an MOT done, but the MOT will need to be done on the chassis number because obviously it doesn't have a registration number. If it's a historic vehicle, so anything pre-1980, you won't need to pay tax when you register it. But if it's anything post-1980, then you pay 6 months tax. And when you download the forms, there'll be the amount of tax that you need to pay depending on the engine size. So for a Trabant, it's about 80 quid. It's not very expensive. Also, so the process is quite simple. It's not that complex, and it's easy to do. And we're always here, and the other clubs are here to help you.
Okay. I think the essential point is that there's help out there. There are forms to fill in, and it's we might not understand it intuitively, but there's a way around the problem, and that way is by asking the help of others. Now, what about if I can ask, mods and what do people do to their Trabbies? Because there isn't a Trabbie on the road that is sort of factory fresh. So no. What are the sort of popular ways of making changes?
Well, the thing is that as the Trabants developed through their period, they had different things added. So the very last Trabants had a fuel gauge fitted. So a lot of people retrofit those. They'll do full restorations on them. The only problem with that you've got to remember is that you can spend thousands and thousands restoring it. But at the moment, if you did that with an E-Type Jaguar or an Aston Martin, you're going to reap the rewards. You won't get that with a Trabant at the moment. So,
Sean, can I put to you that actually I rather like that my Trabbies have a history. They've got a story to tell, and someone put that button on the dashboard for the reason they put that button on the dashboard. I don't really want to sort of go back to how it came out of the factory. That's all a little bit. So it's erasing the history of the car in my view. But it's also that unless you run a Trabant museum, there's very little point in going back to restore. Again, this is my view, but very little point in going back because every single Trabant is different. Every single Trabant that is on the road today is different. But you can go a bit crazy with it. People do all sorts of stuff. So things like lowering Trabant. People lower Trabants. People turn them into monster trucks. They do all sorts.
Yeah, luring's quite big in this country, so we've had a few club members that have done this in the past, and I think the kit to get the luring bits that you need is about £200. It's not actually expensive. We've got one local in Coventry, which is a combi, the estate version that's been lowered. It looks absolutely fantastic. It's had a custom spray job, you know, paint. It looks fab, and that's what people tend to do first. They tend to customize the car. They'll spray it different colors. They go to two-tone like the early ones are. So yeah, they're really easy to modify, and that's what people like. And one of the biggest ones is the Trabant. So that's a Wartburg Trabant, and what that is, and this is really big in the UK, is you put a Wartburg 3-cylinder 1000cc two-stroke engine into the Trabant, and it's a beast. It becomes an absolute beast. But you have to be careful you don't do what one person did, and that was forget to strengthen the engine bay, because he learnt quite quickly with a twisted chassis and the like. So yeah, you have to do it properly.
Well, you have to know what you're doing, but I do agree with you. I see all sorts of crazy stuff, either at meets or you know, on the internet. They are extremely customizable machines.
Yeah, we have got a V8 version in the UK.
Really?
Someone's fitted a V8, and the air intake is outside of the bonnet. It's a beast.
Yeah, I think you would have to be quite careful with that, I imagine.
Yeah, well, I don't think people would argue with you at the lights.
Well, let's try and close with a little bit of you know, other sort of themes for Travis. You know, what else is out there that people might have seen or be curious about, or even want to do, attempt to do at least.
So Betty 2 is an interfluge Trabant. That's our other Trabant. So she's red and cream and has interfluge stickers on her. She has a pilot's outfit in the back, and you get all sorts of interfluge plane tickets and things like that. It's so that sort of thing's good fun. We did have a fire car, so that's Fairware car. See, I can't speak yet. But that was nice. Had a little blue light on the top, and had the phone and everything on the dashboard. Those sort of things. They're all fun things to do, and to be honest, it does no harm, because it just brings people to have a closer look.
So
see what's going on.
I agree. I can only agree with you. I've seen the Trabi camper van.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing machine. And if your pockets aren't quite as deep as all that, then you can go for the roof tent Trabi.
Yeah,
which is great.
Well, they're available. You can buy those. They're being made today specifically for the Trabant. They're about €1,700 because they did have them originally. So it basically went on a roof rack attached to the tow bar. But you can still buy those now, and when we go to the Treffens in Germany, you see them. They're fantastic.
Amazing, yeah, amazing. I think the last thing, and this might not be the right place to close our conversation today, but I did see Trabi engines in East German sort of military youth camp. They were essentially driving Trabant tanks.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Which I thought was both incredible, disturbing. Bizarre. It was, yes, but certainly interesting. Anyway, on that slightly controversial note, I think we ought to bring things to a close and a conclusion, if that's okay. I think we've done as much as we can do in the time available. Guys, thank you so much once again. We'll be back around the table. I think we're going to sort of, you know, ultimately we'd like to sort of bring other experts, other people who have experience with Trabis into the mix. So that'll probably happen over time, I guess. But for now, thank you so much, and we'll see you all soon. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.